Hi guys! Welcome to my vlog, and in this video, I will be sharing to you one of the stories of Francisco Sionil Jose entitled Yes, Tong. But before anything else, let's get to know the man behind this beautiful story. Do you want to know more about him? Let's watch this. Recognitions of Jose's literary works and his influence on the Philippines and Asia include Ramon Magsaysay Award for Journalism, Literature and Creative Arts of 1980. Also, he was awarded as a National Philippine Artist on 2001. Lastly, the Pablo Neruda Centennial Award of 2004. Jose has worked as journalist and has founded a bookshop, publishing house, and art gallery. In 1966, he established Solidarity, a monthly magazine of current affairs, ideas, and arts, whose contributors include South Asia's leading writers, poets, statesmen, scholars, and political activists. Since he started his writing career in 1949, Jose has written more than 35 books and translated into more than 20 languages published worldwide. He has also been affiliated with international cultural organizations, notably International PEN, the World Association of Poets, Playwrights, Essayists, and Novelists, which the Philippines Center he founded in 1958. He is best known for his epic work, The Rosales Saga, composing 5 novels encompassing 100 years of Philippine history and a vivid documentary of Filipino life. Francisco Sionil Jose is a Filipino born in Rosales, Pangasinan on December 3, 1924. He finished his secondary education in public school and graduated at University of Santo Tomas in 1949. Francisco Sionil Jose's novels, short stories, and non-fiction works highlight the social underpinnings, class struggles, and colonial history of Filipino society. Now, here's our chica for today. Don't you know that Francisco Sionil Jose is still alive?
Wow!
Yes, you heard it right. Now in his 90s, he continues to be a prolific writer and relentless voice against social injustice and national amnesia. He still managed to visit Solidaridad bookstore in Manila regularly. Yes, amazing, right?
Wow!
And that is our chica for today. Now, let me share to you his other famous works. Let's start with his epic work. This epic is entitled The Rosales Saga. It is composed of 5 novels, namely Poon, 3, My Brother, My Executioner, The Pretenders, and Mas. Next is his novels. First, Ermita, Gagamba, Viajero, Cid, Bensincol, Vibora, Sherds, and The Feat of Juan Bacnang. Next is his one and only novella entitled Two Filipino Women. Next is his short stories. He has 6. First, The God Stealer, Waywaya, Platinum, Olvido, Papilov, and other various short stories. And now we're down to his plays and verse. He has only 2. Question and Muse and Balikbayan. So much about the author. Aren't you curious about the story, Tong? Now, let me unravel to you the story. To start, let me introduce to you the characters of the story. Alistan. She is the main character of the story, a Filipino Chinese who represents the lower class or the Ongpin Chinese. Conrado Lopez. He is a Filipino who has become class conscious after he falls in love with Alice Tan. Mr. Tan, the uncle of Alice. Though he owns an electrical shop, he still belongs with the same class with Alice, the old rich Chinese, to whom Alice is arranged in marriage that represents the higher class. He lives in Green Hills, which is actually belongs to elite group. There are two significant settings in the story. First, the New Life electrical supply. It is the one Mr. Tan owns where Alice works. It is also the place where Conrado and Alice's love story initiated, shattered, and ended. Number 2. Rizal Park. It is the place where Conrado and Alice spent most of their time together.
This time, let me share to you their story. Conrado Lopez fell deeply in love for the first time when he was 30. It was one of those beautiful things destined to bleakness. And from the very beginning, he had an inkling that this was how it would be. And all because Alice Tan was Chinese. When he first saw her, it seemed as if she had blossomed straight out of a Chinese book. Alice Tan's parents used to run a small grocery store in Ongpin. Both came from Fukin, and Alice could trace her family back to Amoy. Conrado Lopez did not know his lineage beyond his great-grandfather and not interested in the Chinese traditional kinship system. But he got so interested afterwards. He started to delve into his own background. He lived with his spinster sister, Remedios, in a small house in Makati, a side street parallel to Rizal Avenue in Santa Cruz. He had inherited the house with its pocket-sized yard from his parents. It was March when brownouts were frequent. So when the lights went out that early evening, he thought it was another brownout. But he noticed that the lights on the other house were on. So he immediately concluded that there must be something wrong with the fuse. So he threw the main switch off and changed it. He passed by Mr. Tan's electrical shop, then there he meets Alice. Since then, Conrado keeps going back to the shop. Then he realized that day by day he was falling in love with Alice. The following evening, Conrado Lopez passed by the shop before proceeding to the Chinese restaurant across the street. Her uncle was not there, but Alice was. And as he passed, their eyes locked. He positioned himself in the restaurant, toying with his cup of coffee, and watched her reading a magazine. Soon, it was time to close. Mr. Tan went out to close the steel accordion door shut, and it was then that Contrado noticed the black Mercedes in front of the shop, to which as if she was in a hurry. Alice went. She sat in front with the driver, and as they drove off, in soft dark, he could see her turn and take a last look at him. On the fifth Sunday, Conrado Lopez took Alice Tan to an hotel. He had told her that he wanted to make love and hold her, but she hadn't replied. Instead, she kissed him with passion. Only when they were finally in the room, her face flashed, his hands eager, and his whole being inflamed. She didn't tell him that she has expected this to happen, but not too soon. There, they confront one another with the consequences they've done. Alice reiterates that she was arranged for a marriage with an old rich man whose Mr. Tan settled everything. Alice has a big debt of gratitude to her uncle for her raised her when she was a child. Then, the rich man gave her brother a job which generally makes their life convenient. Both of them was dismayed with the reality, and so they left the place helplessly. One Monday afternoon, Conrado went to the electrical shop to look for Alice. There, he saw Mr. Tan busy doing his work. He asked him where he can find Alice and did a confrontation on his reason why he don't want Alice to marry a Filipino man like him. He was in terrible pain when he knew that Alice finally moved with her new family in Green Hills. On Sundays, Conrado is still hopeful to see Alice in Rizal Park. But it was then that he noticed the black Mercedes parked at the edge of the green, and beyond it, Alice walking to the car, her arm held by a fat, bald Chinese old enough to be her father. She was big with child, and as she looked at Conrado, there was a brief, anguished look on her face which told him not to move and not to speak. She got into the car, her husband after her, and as they drove away, he still stood there reeling with emotion, knowing clearly now what it was all about. The Tong that must be paid, the life that must be worked because it had to believe.
The point of view of the story is third-person omniscient, wherein the narrator knows all the feelings, actions, and thoughts of all characters. The author moves from one character to another to show one's contribution to the plot. The literary approach used in the story is Marxist, for each character represents particular social class, since the author highlights different class distinction. The social distinction of Filipino Chinese in the story are categorized by location. The story shows that Filipinos are represented differently from Chinese Filipinos. As for the literary analysis, I have here two. First, to discuss the feminist criticism. This explains how the oppression of women is represented in the story. This shows that women are oppressed by patriarchal ideology through politically, socially, economically, and psychologically. It is also concerned with the less obvious forms of women marginalization. The story absolutely represents women marginalization in terms of romantic relationship and marriage, rooted from the patriarchal ideology of her culture. Second, the theory of intersectionality. The story reflects the social construction of the author on the Filipino-Chinese culture in the Philippines. It shows how Filipinos are being construed by the Filipino-Chinese and vice versa. This short story about the conflict between Chinese and Filipino culture is probably a reflection of his feelings towards Filipino Chinese.
I have here 4 key points found in the story. Number 1. Nowadays, we cannot say that this kind of love story doesn't exist. There are a lot of forbidden love story in the world. It is not because he or she is Chinese, but also because of different cultures, traditions, beliefs, and the likes. Number 2. Tong is a Chinese word for pambayad utang. And in the short story, the Chinese woman was the Tong. Her being the Tong is also a factor of their forbidden love story. They cannot be together because their fates does not match. Number 3. Tong is a story that tells that in the world of love, we cannot predict which and what our love stories can be. There are different endings for every story. That even though you fight hard for it, if it is not for you, it is not for you. You cannot get what you want no matter what. Number 4. Tong's forbidden love story is just one example in the present world. There are no perfect love story, and not all lovers are destined for each other. The story may be heartbreaking and have a sad ending, but still, it let us realize that this world is not perfect, especially when it comes to love. We should be literate on the factors that may forbid our own love story.
The theme of the story is that some people are meant to fall with each other, but they are not meant to be together. Sad. Kung sa ato pa, pinagtagpo pero hindi pinadhana. That ends the story of Alice Tan and Condrado Lopez. Now that Tong has served, paid, and lived.